If there's been one trend that's characterized the high horology watch market in the 21st century so far, it's undoubtedly integrated bracelet watches. However, there's more to the integrated bracelet trend than just stainless steel sports watches. Today we're highlighting 9 different integrated bracelet watches that run the full gamut of sports to dress, watches for a little bit of everyone. No matter what your tastes are, I think there might be something here for you. The first piece that we're highlighting is one that has recently come back into the public spotlight. It's a Piaget Polo, characterized by a sort of chunky bracelet and case design that seamlessly flows from bracelet into case. We have this alternating round and flat lug structure, and that design language carries straight through the case and also onto the champagne dial that sort of mimics the yellow gold of the bracelet and case, really allows the design language to flow seamlessly straight through the entirety of the watch. These pieces have recently been reissued, and so we've started to see a surge in interest in these vintage offerings. This particular piece flaunts a calendar functionality, which isn't necessarily the most common for Piaget Polo. Both the date and the day of the week, these pieces are some of the most coveted, and it comes from one of the masters of integrated bracelet watchmaking, Piaget. Moving to the opposite end of the spectrum, we're now going to look at complications as they pertain to integrated bracelet watches. This is a watch we've spoken about in the past. It's the Patek Philippe reference 3945. As you can see, even on the complicated end of dress watch construction, Patek Philippe was bringing integrated bracelets to the forefront. It's incredibly rare. When we look at the 3940, essentially the strapped version of the 3945, they made about 7,000 to 8,000 examples, but only a couple hundred pieces were made on an integrated bracelet. It's a really beautiful design, but more importantly on a practical level, it's incredibly comfortable because the links on these pieces are just so incredibly soft. It allows the watch to sort of disappear on your wrist, and it adds a level of balance. This particular piece is executed in white gold. It represents both the high horology side of Patek Philippe as a movement maker, but also their ability to execute jewelry quite well. And I think that their ability to manipulate white gold for this particular piece worked out brilliantly. If you're looking for something of this aesthetic, but on the more affordable side, we're going to move now to a Vacheron Constantin that captures a similar theme. This is a yellow gold piece, and it's not a perpetual calendar like the 3945, but rather a more standard calendar. However, this dial displays the date, the day of the week, and the moonphase. And you also get a tapisserie dial, much like you'd find on a Royal Oak. And if you like the look of a complicated integrated bracelet dress watch, I think that this piece sort of captures that aesthetic quite brilliantly and at a fraction of the price of a more complicated alternative from a brand like Patek Philippe. Continuing on with Vacheron Constantin, we're now moving to the modern era, and we're looking at Vacheron Constantin's most popular integrated bracelet watch. The Overseas collection was born out of the 222 and released to celebrate the 222nd anniversary of the brand's founding. And they refined the design with the Overseas collection, which became an almost instant success thanks to the integration of the Maltese cross motif that is the brand's logo into the design ethos of the Overseas. So we see on the bezel the Maltese cross motif extended straight into that design. And we also see down the bracelet and into the clasp elements of the Maltese cross. And I think that that really showcases Vacheron's commitment to design. And these are really beautiful pieces that have gone on to be celebrated by the watchmaking industry as perhaps the quietest and most subtle of the high horology, Holy Trinity integrated bracelet watches of the modern era. Moving along, we have to highlight a Patek Philippe Nautilus, reference 3800. And I think that these mid-size models of the Nautilus, they're significantly more accessible than their larger jumbo alternatives. You get everything that made the Nautilus such a success upon its release in 1976 with the reference 3700, but in a incredibly wearable and comfortable package. I think that this watch encapsulates the key design elements that made the Nautilus successful. You have an incredibly comfortable and supple bracelet integrated directly into a case with 2 ears, meant to embody a nautical theme and packaged for the modern customer. It has a yacht deck structure on the dial, the sort of grooved aesthetic that has been engraved on the dial surface, a beautiful sunburst blue that exchanges from almost pale blue to black at the extremes of the dial. Some say that the original goal with the Nautilus was to say what would happen if you took a royal oak and left it in the ocean and had it sort of weathered by the sea over the years. And what you would find is that the more extreme angular design language of the royal oak would be softened to create the curves of the Nautilus. And so what we have here is a nautical themed watch that I think has become one of the fixtures of the industry in the modern era, and it's become also one of the symbols of Patek Philippe as a brand. So if you're looking for a Nautilus in 2025, I would personally recommend looking towards either precious metal or stainless steel mid-size variants. I think that's where you still find some good value, and they're also significantly rarer than the modern alternatives. Moving along to the watch that arguably started the integrated bracelet trend, we have an Audemars Piguet Royal Oak. The Royal Oak has been made in a myriad of variations, and today it almost dominates the Audemars Piguet catalog. The piece that I decided to select is not your conventional Royal Oak. It features a fully decked out bracelet. It also have a really lovely mother of pearl dial with diamond set indices, and I think that this piece is one of the rarer ladies pieces out there, and it encapsulates what the Royal Oak was at the start of its tenure before it became sort of the icon that we know of today. And I think if you're looking for a ladies piece that has a little bit of design but still encapsulates the jewelry end of watchmaking, this is one of the more elegant executions that we have currently available on the site. Continuing along with ladies integrated bracelet pieces, we naturally have to talk about Cartier, and the piece that I selected is a Baignoire. Baignoire is designed to mimic the flowing curves and aesthetic of a bathtub. That was the inspiration that led to the Baignoire. And this particular piece, I think, is one of the cooler ones because it has this integrated bracelet design, which continues that sort of oblong, flowing profile that the watch was inspired by into the bracelet design. And it has a sort of swollen lug structure that I think is unlike any other bracelet on the market. It's one of the more interesting Cartier models, and this particular piece has a really lovely grainy, almost anthracite to silver dial that sort of shimmers in the light in a pretty unique way. There's not many dials that look quite like this on the market. And to sort of counterbalance that, we have a diamond set bezel, which has sort of graduated sized diamond settings, which is something that we don't see quite often. When you look up close at this Cartier, there's an incredibly sophisticated diamond setting execution on this watch. Close to the dial, we have very small rows of diamonds, and as we move out, the diamonds grow in size. And what that does is almost frame the dial in an incredibly beautiful and subtle way. It's something that's easy to miss. But when you look at the details, you see that Cartier didn't add diamonds as an afterthought, but rather made it a key element of the design language of this particular piece, and I think it works absolutely brilliantly. Moving on, we have a watch that has also come back into vogue in recent years. This is a Bulgari Tubogas Serpenti. Serpenti, as its name suggests, is inspired by serpentine design, almost a snake-like aesthetic. It's the type of watch that people either love or hate, and that's kind of why we love it, because it's a watch that has a really unique and polarizing design. So you have this sort of snaking bracelet that wraps multiple times around the wrist, and then at the head of the bracelet is the nice little small watch, and it's really quite cool. It says Bulgari on the bezel. You have a nice blued handset and very simple dial. This is a watch that's really all about design. We've seen a sort of surge in interest in these vintage pieces, and they're still available at an excellent value considering what modern pieces trade for. So those are our ladies selections. And then finally, I wanted to showcase something on the more affordable end of the spectrum. We have a very unique Ikepod watch. Ikepod is a brand that doesn't get nearly as much attention as it likely should. Its visionary, Mark Newson, was the designer of the Apple Watch, but before he had ever touched the Apple Watch, he was working with Ikepod on very unique timepieces that have very striking design languages that look nothing like any other watches on the market. This particular model is a Ikepod Seaslug dating to 2018. It has a very unconventional bracelet design, but it's incredibly unique, and it sort of continues directly and seamlessly into an almost UFO style case, which has a rotating bezel. But what's cool about this particular rotating bezel is it's integrated into the case, so that there's a sort of seamless flow on the case flank directly into the bezel, and they've added these sort of dimples into the bezel that gives you a little bit more purchase as you're utilizing it. The watch looks unlike anything else on the market, and this is available for under $5,000. So there you have it. This sort of encapsulates what I consider to be the full diversity of the integrated bracelet watchmaking segment of the industry. When you sometimes want to have an extra canvas for creative exploration, that's when I think you look to integrated bracelet watches. You could have a watch like a 3945 because the bracelet itself can become a focal point of the piece. You can take a Piaget like this and have the bracelet design extend into the dial, and that becomes sort of what makes this watch unique. And so I think that it's a really exciting way for brands to experiment, to put forth designs that are not going to be like conventional dress watches or sports watches. And it's a way to sort of push the limits of what consumers might look for when they want to try to put together a collection of unique timepieces. So are integrated bracelet watches here to stay? I think what we've seen is that as these pieces have evolved, they've taken on a myriad of different forms. So let us know down below if you think in 50 years we'll still be collecting integrated bracelet watches, or if they'll go the way of the NFT and the permed hair. We'll see you next time.